My fiancé laughed when I said I proposed with my mom's ring. I'm not wearing a dead woman's hand-me-down. I didn't say a word. But at the ceremony, her bouquet was missing. So was I? My name's Daniel. I'm 29, and I used to believe that love was about patience. That if you held on long enough, fought hard enough, the right person would meet you halfway. That belief died in a jewelry store, under fluorescent lighting, the moment the woman I loved looked me in the eyes and laughed. It wasn't a cruel laugh at first. It was soft, dismissive, the kind of laugh someone makes when they think you've said something adorably stupid. We were standing at the counter. I had just opened the small velvet box and told her where the ring came from. My mom wore it her whole life, I said. It was the one thing she made me promise to pass on, to someone who mattered. Rachel's smile didn't fade immediately, but it shifted, like she was trying to decide if I was joking, and when she realized I wasn't, she let out a breathless snort. I'm not wearing a dead woman's hand-me-down, she said, still half laughing, half shaking her head. Seriously, Daniel? That's so morbid. I stood there for a second too long, not blinking, not breathing. I was waiting for her to backpedal, to say she didn't mean it like that. But she didn't. She took a step back and started browsing another ring tray like nothing had happened, as if I hadn't just opened my heart and handed her a piece of my family. I didn't argue. I didn't correct her. I didn't even touch the ring again. I just closed the box and put it back in my coat pocket, where it would stay until everything else collapsed. Rachel didn't notice the shift in me that day. Or maybe she did, and chose to ignore it. We'd already booked the venue. Her Pinterest board had been evolving for months. The invitations were drafted, the bridesmaids confirmed. There was no room for doubt now, not for her. But something inside me had gone quiet. Not broken, not angry, just quiet. If you're wondering why I didn't speak up then and there, why I didn't walk away after the woman I planned to marry insulted my late mother, it's a fair question. But people don't always leave when they should. Sometimes, we test the limits. We wait for another side to show up. We hope this version of the person we love is temporary. I gave it time. I gave her chances. What she gave me in return was a crash course in selective listening. Back to the story. 2 weeks later, she picked out a different ring. Something large, expensive, new. She paid for it herself with money from a family account her father had set up. I want it to be mine, not recycled, she said, slipping it on like a trophy. We'll keep your mom's ring in a drawer. It's sweet that you tried. The words were light, but the message landed like a stone. A drawer. That's where her legacy would sit. A drawer in a condo we barely furnished together because she didn't like secondhand anything. The worst part? I didn't push back. I swallowed the hurt. Nodded. Smiled. Because by then, I'd already decided something important. I wasn't going to stop the wedding, but I wasn't going to show up for it either. From the outside, we looked perfect. Engaged. Stable. 2 professionals in a downtown condo with views of the skyline, and a shared Spotify playlist for Sunday cleaning. Rachel was a corporate marketing strategist with a minor obsession for aesthetics. Every room we walked into had to be curated. Her hair, her shoes, her future. And I was the stability beneath it. I paid half the rent, smiled for the pictures, booked the dinner reservations, and caught the subtle eye rolls when I didn't match her ambition fast enough. She used to say I was grounding, which I later realized was code for not competition. After the ring incident, she didn't mention it again. She didn't ask where the original was. Didn't ask how I felt. She just moved on. Picked a venue that was timeless but bold. Selected a florist that charged more for one bouquet than I used to make in a week. Her father agreed to foot the bill. I didn't argue. Why would I? It wasn't my wedding anymore. The guest list ballooned to 200. People I didn't know. Influencer friends. Her yoga instructor. An interior designer who'd helped hang wallpaper in her parents' lake house. She made it clear, this wasn't just about us. This was about optics. This is the biggest day of my life, she said one night while finalizing the seating chart. It needs to look the part. I was sitting on the couch, watching her scroll through linen samples like she was negotiating a merger. She didn't look up when she said it. That sentence stuck with me. The biggest day of my life. She didn't say our life. Just hers. I think I knew right then. If she walked down that aisle, she'd be marrying the stage, not the person. I started paying attention to the small moments she assumed I wouldn't notice. The way she paused before introducing me to her boss at a company dinner. How she changed her tone when talking to her friends, making me sound like some gentle background character in her fast-paced world. The way she tested jokes that landed on the edge of insult. You still wear that old jacket? You still using that car? You still think steakhouses are romantic? I wasn't poor. I wasn't struggling. I had a solid job as a systems analyst, and I paid my share of everything. But I didn't signal wealth. Not the way she wanted to signal it. To her, the wedding was a launchpad. For the life she envisioned. For the image she believed she'd earned. And somewhere in the middle of all that planning, I stopped being her partner and became a placeholder. A necessary prop in her curated future. Her parents adored her, of course, especially her dad. He called her princess, and once, half-jokingly, said to me over brunch, "You know she could have married into money, right? We're trusting you to catch up." He laughed when he said it. A sharp, patronizing laugh. The kind you feel behind your teeth for the rest of the day. Rachel sipped her mimosa and didn't correct him. I smiled back. Quiet again. Always quiet. That winter, I started carrying my mother's ring in my coat again. Not because I had hoped she'd change her mind, but because I needed the reminder that I came from someone who valued legacy. That my silence wasn't cowardice. It was focus. Every time I held that ring between my fingers, I remembered who I was raised to be. And I started planning something else entirely. 1 week before the wedding, we had dinner with her maid of honor, Megan. Megan and I had always gotten along. She wasn't like Rachel. She was sharper, quieter, the kind of person who observes the room instead of performing for it. She watched me that night, really watched me. And when Rachel went to the restroom, Megan leaned in and asked, low and direct, "You okay with this?" I looked at her for a second, then smiled politely. "Of course," I said. "Everything's set." Megan didn't nod. She just tilted her head and said, "You've been folding paper while she's building a castle. Just don't forget where your hands are." I didn't sleep much that night. The next day, Rachel was back to checking details. Color palettes, chair sashes, a string quartet that would play a modern rendition of some indie love song neither of us even liked. I watched her arrange the day like a puzzle she already knew the answer to. That was when I made the last decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to sabotage. I wasn't going to ruin anything. I was just going to leave. No explanations. Space big enough for her to finally see what she'd filled it with. The rehearsal dinner felt like a dress rehearsal for a play I wasn't supposed to be in. It was hosted at a vineyard about an hour outside the city. Warm lights wrapped around the oak beams. The kind of place that made everyone feel like they were inside a wedding magazine. Someone even had a drone capturing overhead shots for Rachel's pre-wedding montage. Her family was glowing. Her mother had cried 3 times before dessert. Her father gave a toast that included phrases like, "We always knew she'd marry well," and "Daniel's the right kind of reliable." Everyone laughed. I nodded. Rachel was beaming in her white rehearsal dress, talking to her friends about flights to Bali, bachelorette party throwbacks, and which celebrity wore her exact wedding gown style last year. I watched it all quietly, sipping water. It wasn't bitterness. It was detachment. I felt like a man at his own retirement party, listening to a room full of strangers congratulate him for a job he didn't remember taking. When it came time for me to give a short speech, something Rachel insisted I do, I stood, raised my glass, and said the only thing that felt honest. To choices. A few people laughed, unsure whether it was supposed to be funny. I smiled, sat down, and checked my phone. 1 missed call from Megan. Later that night, after the rehearsal, I stepped outside the hotel and called her back. She answered on the second ring. "I shouldn't be saying this," she said immediately, voice low. "But Rachel doesn't see you." I didn't say anything. "I'm not trying to stir things up," she continued. Look, she told me once that you were the safe bet. That you're the kind of guy who will always say yes." "That sounds about right," I said. "She's counting on you showing up tomorrow no matter what." I let that hang in the air. Then I thanked her. Not for the warning, just for the honesty. I went back to my room and took the ring out of my coat. My mother's ring was nothing flashy. A delicate gold band. 1 small diamond in the middle, held by 2 smaller ones on either side. She used to say it looked like 3 stars lined up just right. Balance. Past, present, future. I stared at it for a long time. It didn't belong in a drawer. And I didn't belong in that ceremony. At 2:13 a.m., I opened my laptop. I canceled the honeymoon reservations. Refunded the joint bookings. Canceled the floral pickup on my end. At 2:34, I sent one message to the event coordinator. Not Rachel. Not her family. Not even Megan. Just the coordinator. Regretfully, the groom will not be attending. Please continue with ceremony operations as contracted. I didn't expect a reply until morning. She responded in 8 minutes. Understood. At 3:07 a.m., I wrote one more thing. Not an explanation. Just a sentence. A sentence that I left folded inside the velvet ring box before sealing it shut and sliding it into Rachel's bridal bouquet that was stored in the fridge next to the champagne. The note said, "For someone who believed love could be replaced." So I replaced myself. Then I placed the bouquet back exactly where I found it. I packed before dawn. Left through the service elevator. No announcement, no farewell, no goodbye note. By the time Rachel woke up, I was gone. By the time the ceremony started, so was her bouquet. 2 missing things. Both silent. Both chosen. Morning arrived with sunlight pouring over a carefully designed bridal suite. Rachel woke up to soft knocking, her makeup artist already setting up near the window. The photographer was scheduled to arrive in 30 minutes. Champagne was chilling. Everything was running on time. Except one thing. The bouquet was missing. She asked about it once. Lightly. Like it was a minor glitch that could be fixed with a call or two. The florist had delivered it. The planner confirmed. The bridal suite had received it. The staff confirmed. It had even been photographed and labeled. But now it was gone. She didn't panic. Not immediately. They brought her a backup. A smaller bouquet that didn't match the dress she'd tailored twice to highlight the florals. She held it anyway. She assumed it was just a small hiccup in a day that still belonged to her. But then the ceremony time came and went. The music had been cued. The chairs were filled. The guests were all seated. Her father waited by the double doors, hand ready to escort her down the aisle. And the groom? Nowhere. They stalled for 20 minutes. Then 30. Phones were pulled out discreetly. The officiant whispered something to the coordinator. Her father's grip started to shift from excited to tense. Rachel, at first, insisted it was nothing. He's probably stuck in traffic. He's just running late. Something must have come up. But something felt off. She knew it. Somewhere deep under the layers of silk and mascara, she felt it. The room behind her went quiet. No giggles. No selfies. Just soft confusion. And then Megan stepped forward, holding her own phone, her lips pressed in a thin line. She showed Rachel the screen. A message. One Rachel hadn't received yet. From Daniel. Not a long message. Just a photo of the velvet ring box. And the sentence he had written inside. For someone who believed love could be replaced. So I replaced myself. Rachel didn't speak for a long time after that. She read the message twice. 3 times. Then she turned around and walked back into the suite, dress trailing like a flag in retreat. The guests were eventually informed that the ceremony would be delayed due to unforeseen circumstances. No one said anything out loud, but the whispers were already circulating like wind through dry grass. By sundown, most of them had left. The quartet stopped playing. The champagne stayed corked. The cake stood untouched. Rachel didn't post anything that day. She didn't respond to texts either. She sat on the edge of the bridal suite bed for hours, her phone screen blank, the backup bouquet resting in her lap like a joke that had gone on too long. I didn't check my phone that day. Not once. I knew what I'd see. Missed calls. Messages. Some confused, some angry. Rachel's friends asking where I was. Her father demanding answers. Her mother probably sobbing over what this would do to their reputation. All of it predictable. I let it pile up in silence. Instead of opening the flood, I opened my windows. I was in a rental cabin 3 hours outside the city. A place with no Wi-Fi, just enough cell service to send one last message, and a view of pine trees swaying like they didn't care about anything but wind. The air smelled like sap and dirt and freedom. I made coffee on a stove older than I was. Sat on a porch that creaked when you breathed. Wrote nothing. Said nothing. Just listened. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt still. Not frozen. Not hiding. Just still. It wasn't vengeance that made it satisfying. It wasn't the drama of a ruined wedding or the whispers that followed. It was the relief. Relief of not having to perform anymore. Of not being the calm one. The stable one. The one who bit his tongue because she had plans. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not exactly. She got what she wanted, right up until the part she didn't. The dress. The venue. The crowd. She just didn't get me. Because what she never understood, what people like her never do, is that some men don't leave with noise. Some men leave with precision. A week later, when I finally turned my phone back on, there were 42 unread messages from her. The first one was at 11:58 a.m. on the wedding day. Where are you? The last one just said, why would you do this to me? I didn't reply, not because I didn't have the words, but because she already knew the answer. She'd known since the jewelry store. A month passed before I saw her again. Not in person, just a photo. Someone forwarded it to me. A screenshot from a lifestyle influencer's Instagram story, one of Rachel's friends. The caption said, back on the grind with my favorite warrior queen, she survived what would have broken most. In the picture, Rachel was smiling. Same hair, same posture, same brand of curated elegance. But her eyes, they didn't match the caption. She looked like someone who was still explaining the version of the story where she didn't lose anything. She'd changed her last name on social media back to her maiden one, deleted the engagement pictures, wiped the venue tags, but not before someone had left a comment under an older post. Where was the groom? No one replied. And that was the closest thing to closure I ever saw from her. I never needed more than that. The ring stayed with me for a while. I didn't rush to box it up again. I kept it on my desk, next to my mom's old photograph. Some nights, I'd hold it up to the window and let the streetlights catch it just right. Balance. Past, present, future. She never wore it, but I did something better with it. I let it remind me that silence is not surrender. It's choice. A year later, I moved to a smaller city. Found work at a firm where nobody cared about my clothes or my title. I stopped trying to build someone else's idea of a life. I met someone eventually. Not at a wedding. Not through a dating app. At a library, of all places. She was putting a post-it note inside a poetry book. I asked her what it said. She smiled and said, "Something worth finding." We didn't talk about weddings for a long time. When we finally did, she asked if I'd ever been close to marrying someone else. I said, almost. But it turns out, almost was the best thing that never happened. She never asked for a new ring. She only asked if I'd meant what I said back then, about loving someone who mattered. And I told her yes. Because this time, I wasn't proposing to fill a space in someone's dream. I was offering something real. Something worn, but not broken. And she held the ring like it was something alive. Not a hand-me-down, but a story. One that had finally found its ending. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.